Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Echo here, and I have so much to talk about in this video, but before I get into it, I just want to talk about where I've been for the past few months and why I haven't been uploading, and I'll leave a timestamp in the video right here, so that if you want to skip to the main part of the video and you don't want to hear me talk about any of this, you can just skip over it and just get to the main part of the video. But anyway, for those of you that are still here and didn't skip ahead, I just haven't been uploading over the past few months because I just didn't feel any of the content that I was getting in Cold War was really entertaining enough or anything like that, so I figured I would just do a camo grind, and then I'd probably do a video at the end of the camo grind and just kind of sum all of it up. But it just wasn't really worth uploading, and I ended up getting Dark Aether and just wanted to take a break from the game altogether and just to refresh. And my outlet for outside of gaming was basically just putting a bunch of hours into work and just making bank, basically. And so I just haven't had a good reason to come back to the game. I did try out Firebase Z and Outbreak and all those other game modes that just kind of lacked content, though. And I felt the game needed like a lot more with multiplayer maps and just remakes and things like that, but I'll get more into that later. So by the time I was ready to really start making content again, there was just so much going on in my life, from like a shitty tax situation to my dog dying and just a bunch of other personal things that I don't really want to talk about other than those two things. And I don't want to get into detail on either of those either, but yeah, my creative energy was just kind of shot for the past long ass time. And so things have been getting a lot better, and I've been finding myself a lot more time and just creativity and things to get back into videos. So I'm not going to promise any videos or any kind of upload schedule, and I'm definitely not going to be streaming because I just don't even like streaming. I'm more of an old school, like solely YouTube type of person. Like I don't really like streaming. That's just how I am. And I don't plan on changing that in the future. I don't think I'm ever going to really get into streaming like I originally wanted to, or like thought I wanted to. It's just not for me. So anyway, that's all I want to talk about. Now we can get into today's video, which is about the lack of content and just, I guess, overall, the whole overall state of Call of Duty Cold War 4 months in. So I just want to start with the lack of content in Cold War. Like, by this time last year, Modern Warfare had a total of 49 weapons, 30 maps, and Warzone, which is basically its own game at this point. And this year, Cold War only has 40 weapons, which is only 11 added weapons compared to Modern Warfare 16 by this time last year. And that's including a sniper that's not even out yet. I think it comes out either later today or tomorrow. And so like I'm counting that as like towards Cold War. So technically there's only 10 right now. Yeah, they only have a total of 25 maps, 22 being multiplayer, 3 being zombies. Modern Warfare had, this is by this time last year, they had 9 more weapons, 5 more maps, and basically a whole nother game, which was Warzone, which is still doing really well. Something else that's also worth mentioning is that in the current time, like the season 2 for Cold War right now, Modern Warfare has actually gotten 2 more maps than Cold War has in the Cold War season 2, which technically they both got 3 maps, but Modern Warfare received 3 6v6 maps, which are considered the actual multiplayer add-ons, because the other one I believe was a 2v2, and then I think they had a 12v12 map or something like that got added or something I don't really know. But all I know is that Modern Warfare is actually getting more content right now than Cold War. And I actually see this as a really big problem for Cold War right now, because it kind of just, to me, it seems like they're just kind of throwing in the towel, and it's just like they don't even want to compete, and they just don't want to even like continue making the game or like bringing stuff out for the game. That's just how I feel with them just getting more content for an older game, which, by the way, has never happened in the past before. They've never updated a game past the initial year of the game, so that's also worth mentioning. And with there just being so little content out for this year, that it's just boring. There's not like much really to do. There's no incentives, there's no real reason to play the game, and there's really nothing to work towards other than camo grinds. And yeah, there's just not really content keeping me coming back to the game. Even like the gun mechanics for the game haven't really changed since the beginning, like since the release of the game. But moving on from the lack of content and updates that this game has had, my next biggest issue with the game is just like the attempt to run the game solely off of nostalgia. Modern Warfare did this a lot too, where the content that was coming out was basically just recycled content from their best-selling games, which is like MW2 and MW3, and I guess they had COD 4 stuff in there too. They've had pretty much all the original Modern Warfare stuff just being recycled. And I've said it before and I'll stand by it. I would buy a game that is just completely recycled content from all the best stuff from all the old CODs, similar to what they do with COD Online. If you don't know what COD Online is, it's literally a game just based off of recycled content from all of the best Call of Duty games, and it's only in China right now. I think they will come out with a game like that eventually, but I would buy a game like that. I'm not saying I wouldn't buy a game that's recycled content. I'm just saying the problem I'm having with Cold War is that they aren't even like really trying to recycle the content. They're just taking maps and literally just copying them and then slapping them into the new game. And something that Modern Warfare did really well was when they recycled the content, they portioned the maps to fit the game correctly. They like enlarged some of the maps. I think Rust was 4 times the size of the original Rust or something like that, just to make the movement feel right on the map. The biggest problem that Cold War is having right now is they are literally just copying and pasting maps into a game that is, 1, a little bit faster paced, and 2, just doesn't play anything like BO2 did. And so when they're taking these maps and is basically just slapping them into a new game that plays so much different than the original, it just makes the game just feel wrong. It's like the gameplay just isn't the same. And I think that's like a really big issue with a lot of the maps that they're bringing in that are remakes, is they just aren't making the maps proper to the new games. They're just literally taking them and copying them, pasting them, and calling it good. It's kind of a lazy way of just being like, here, have your old content that you guys love. And I mean, if you look back at BO2 when they remade Firing Range, they did such a good job with making studio that a lot of people actually didn't even realize. I don't know if I probably shouldn't say a lot of people, but I know people that literally didn't even know that studio was made off of Firing Range. They thought it was its own map because they did such a good job of making the map different without changing the layout. They just redid it so well that people didn't even realize, or I guess some people didn't really realize that it was a map from a different game. It's pretty crazy how that went, but my point is, like, with these maps that they're remaking and putting into the new games, they just need to like take the time to actually like go through and make it feel like it's its own map and its own game. It doesn't, I don't know, use the nostalgia off of the old games and try to make it, because they're trying so hard to make the new game just feel like BO1 and BO2, but it's just not. It doesn't feel like it. Is just, it feels so forced, and I think that's the biggest problem, is that they need to relax and kind of just keep it from feeling so forced. But at the end of the 4 months, how well is Call of Duty Cold War really doing? That's a really hard question to answer, because Activision won't actually publicly announce their concurrent player count for Cold War, which kind of says a lot without saying anything, because last year Activision was boasting about how many players they had on Modern Warfare and how many copies they sold and how it's the best-selling Call of Duty ever, and Warzone's the most downloaded Battle Royale and all these things. And they're going from such like a high energy to just like not even talking about the new game. And then, like I said, they're adding content to last year's game, which they have never done before. That's like insulting to... If I was working at Treyarch, that'd insult me, because they're acknowledging that the new game is so bad and people just don't want to touch it, that it's just like they would rather just put development into an old game. But if you take a look at the Twitch concurrent viewers live streams, you can kind of get an idea of how people are paying attention to and what games people are playing. And if you look at Warzone, they had like 60,000 viewers when I took the screenshot. And even if you took the top streamer off, which at the time I took the screenshot was at 21,000 viewers, if you took that top streamer off and just looked at the amount of other like streamers that are getting views, they still had 54,000 more views than Cold War. And so, like, as someone who really wanted to see this game succeed and like believes the core game is good, it's really hard to admit that Treyarch like dropped the ball on this game. But with Cold War being in this situation right now, it is a failing game. But I do still think that they can recover the game if Treyarch were to do something like drop a Chronicles that has like all the zombies maps, or at least has a really good amount of the remastered zombies maps, and hopefully they just don't mess with them too much and just make them work with the new game, and then add like a lot more player content or multiplayer content, because right now all they're really doing is just selling people packs. But like if they were to add something like camos from like what Modern Warfare did with Obsidian, which just gives people another objective, or just objectives in general, anything that will keep people interested in the game, I feel like that would go such a long way. Honestly, the biggest thing that Cold War needs to do right now is either remove skill-based matchmaking from the game, or just turn it way down and publicly announce that they're doing this, to admit that they did something wrong by putting this in the game, and make sure they get the players' attentions and tell them, hey, you know, skill-based matchmaking is not in the game anymore, or at least we turned it way down, and just acknowledge it. Because right now they're not even acknowledging that it's in the game. They just kind of like brush it off and go, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't even really care about skill-based matchmaking. I'm not bothered by it really at all, but I'm positive that like 90% of the players who left Cold War left it because skill-based matchmaking is so insane in the game. It makes the game so competitive, and removing it from the game and will just bring back so many players. At least that's how I think it would go, because it would just change the game so much. I can't imagine a lot of the player base benefits from skill-based matchmaking in general. Just like looking at their current numbers and how little of players are actually playing and catering to the smaller audience just seems like the opposite of what they should be doing. Because even my older brother, who works very like often and he has a kid and all these other things, he is the stereotypical Call of Duty casual player, and he would come home, play maybe 2 games and get off immediately because the game was way too competitive. He doesn't even like play COD anymore. I'm pretty sure he only plays his Switch and just plays what's that game called? Animal Crossing New Horizon or something like that. That's the only game he plays at this point. He is like the literal definition of the audience that skill-based matchmaking was created for, and he doesn't even like the game because of it. And especially with Treyarch adding league play to the game, I think they really should have just removed skill-based matchmaking at that point and just put it straight into league play only, and just leave the public matches just public matches, so people that wanted to play competitive could play competitive, and then people that just want to play casual can just play casual. And if they get stomped on by some pub stompers, oh well, that's how Call of Duty was. And that's what so many people loved about Call of Duty, is they hop in, and even if you were getting stomped one game, you knew eventually you'll get your turn to stomp on other players, because there's always somebody way worse than you, or a team of people that are way worse than you. But with skill-based matchmaking, you never run into those people. So it just makes you every single time feel like you are the worst player, compared to when they had it set up without skill-based matchmaking. You'd at least get 1 game a day. You'd play 8 games, 10 games, 20 games, whatever it is, at least 1 game a day, you'd pub stomp somebody else. And that was the best feeling ever, and that's what kept people coming back to the game, is waiting for those lobbies where they can just stomp on kids. And then being able to stay in the lobby and continuously stomp on the kids, because it didn't force you out of the games. And like I said, I'm not even a skill-based matchmaking nerd. I'm not one of those people who just sits here and goes, they have to remove it from the game, I'm going to leave the game if they don't do it. Like, I'm just saying this because it will be better for the game. Like, it will actually make the game better if they got rid of it, because it'll bring players back. It'll be a lot more fun for a lot of other people other than just myself, because like, I don't have a problem being competitive in every game I play. If I don't feel like being competitive, I'll just go play a game like Minecraft. The problem is when the mass audience is doing exactly that, where they go and play a different game just because they don't want to be competitive and they never want to be competitive, it affects the game really poorly. And I think that's why they have to remove it, because that's the main audience. That's like their major numbers right there that are just falling off because they don't want to remove something, because they don't want to acknowledge that they did something wrong. So anyways, that's my thoughts on Cold War in April. So hopefully Treyarch does something to bring the game back to life, because it really is a dying game at this point. It really is failing. But that's all I got for you guys. Peace out. I'm out. I'll catch you guys in the next video.